Kirblog on your scriber's feed. Here's a Kirblog for your time, Kirblog. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for putting up with my mild distraction of a topic earlier this week. But we're back to my I guess, again, this hasn't really been like a themed month, but I've been just kind of on this roll with a lot of different like storytelling and production and creative related advice column Kirblog. So I'm back with another one this week. This one comes from Giannis Domosidis, who asked on the Tome Terrain of Magical Expertise Facebook page, "Hey Kirb, I've got a request for a Kirblog topic. So I'm currently working on a comic, but I want you to tackle this for art in general. And I've got a story idea, which I'm really proud of, but I feel like my art is lackluster. Do you think it'd be better for me to start making the comic now, or wait until I believe I've reached a sufficient point in my art? And by the way, I haven't gone to university yet, so I believe I'll evolve immensely in the years to come." Thank you. This is a great one. And this is one of the few times that I wrote a full outline for myself on what to talk about, because there's a lot to cover. So first of all, a big thing I'm going to start this off with, and I'm sure you guys have all heard this, especially if you're just a visual artist of any kind, you've heard the phrase that we all have 1,000 bad drawings within all of us, and the sooner that we get out all 1,000 of those bad drawings, then we'll finally be able to start making some good ones. That's true, but even after getting all 1,000 of those awful drawings out of us, there's still a much higher difficulty in the aspect of just creatively being able to give birth. Just reaching a point with our work, with our art, with our whatever medium that it is that we choose to do, to a point where we can be somewhat personally satisfied with it to allow it to exist in the first place. A long time ago, much less to an extent nowadays, because now it's kind of become a joke. It was and by the way, I'm going to be covering a lot of different things and kind of mocking them as a result, but I promise you I'm guilty of all of these things myself, so I say it completely including myself into the stupidity of it all, so bear with me. Yeah, it started as the what people jokingly refer to now as the original character do not steal shit, which balancing act, I'm actually going to be referencing that IP of mine a lot for this particular one. Was that for a very, very, very long time of that I was absolutely terrified to show anybody on the internet anything about that idea, in fear of people stealing it and using it for themselves and, making it into a real show and taking all the, making all this money and getting all this popularity and accolades off of my idea. Let me break this down for all of you. Nobody wants to steal your ideas. Nobody wants to steal your ideas. And it doesn't matter how amazing that they are or amazing that you think that they might be or whatever. It's entirely because everybody wants to just make their own fucking ideas. So first and foremost, if you have any type of fear like that whatsoever of like putting your work online because of something like that, just don't, because nobody fucking wants to do that. I've finally came to grips with that. By the time I got to college. I'm going to come back to that point a little bit later, but yeah, I feel like that's something that needs to just go. And there's a good reason as to why it's a fucking joke now. But anyway, sorry. Okay, so more back onto the actual topic. It is important to develop your skills as an artist, especially if you want to do a visual medium like, comics or animation or anything like that. And in fact, actually, I would say, Giannis, I would recommend taking a listen to, in case you haven't heard this one, I did a Kirblog topic called "The Dangers of Your Art Style," and you can listen to that after this one if you're interested. I feel like it might actually give a lot of helpful information on kind of another aspect of what this question is kind of getting at. But I'll continue on topic. I'll just leave that in an annotation for anybody who's interested. I'm kind of proud of that one. But yeah, you have to be able to judge for yourself what the skill level that you want to be at, what that is exactly before you dive in. And the thing is that your storytelling values are going to change, or probably will change, by the time that you get to that point. Because the truth is, you can start whenever you want, and you can treat anything and everything that you create, whether you publicize it or otherwise, as an experiment, as an exercise in increasing your level of skill. TV Tome Adventures, and then eventually what became Tome, have been arguably my biggest stepping stones, to achieving greater levels of skill and learning. They're my biggest experiments in wanting to learn and get better, at the medium of animation that I've chosen to work in. Now, if you choose to start now, and when I say start, I mean, creating stuff and putting it like out there for people to see. particularly on the internet, you start your reputation. And even if you use like pseudonyms or whatever, like, try to hide yourself, like you're still starting your reputation. Like people find out shit. It's easy to track who you are down. But this is the same thing for, the other stuff that I did, like a lot of my parody stuff on Newgrounds back in the day is a lot of what cemented my reputation for better or worse. And, that's something that I kind of just, I have to live with, and Tome was the very long, 4-year journey of, breaking out of that perception of me and going to something that, was kind of more along the lines of the type of stuff that I care about. But that's what I mean too, is like, for instance, my storytelling ability and sensibilities changed over the many years since the end of TTA up until the year that I started on Tome. And even more so, they've changed and evolved, over the entire course of those 4 years that I worked on the show. But the other thing that I have to, live with, not to sound so dramatic about it or whatever, but is, what I came up with in 2011, or technically really even before that, because a lot of the outlines of the story were things that I came up with like a couple years before I even started working on the show itself. I have to just accept that, okay, that was the level of skill that I was at that time. That was the creation that I put out to the whatever quality it was, to whatever, however successful it was, to however, much people enjoyed it for what it was. And, the next step is to get better. But there is value to waiting until you feel, what the most appropriate time for you to like premiere yourself to the world could be. I mean, that's because I've been publishing stuff online for anybody to see since about 2004. So I've been, in the public eye doing this sort of thing for now over 10 years. And, and again, that's for better or worse. And just, I wasn't even capable of really animating or drawing anything digitally for years while I was doing TTA. I was doing everything with a fucking mouse for like however long. I didn't even have a tablet until like I was doing, Parody Rangers 3, I think in 2007, so like I had 3 full years at least of just doing everything with a mouse and like MS Paint and editing sprites and shit like that, but yeah, if that's any indication as to how you don't really have to wait too long. The biggest problem is, again, it's learning how to creatively give birth is often the term that I use. Typically as artists, we evolve, we get better as we grow, more experienced, and we do more and we produce more and we learn more. TV tropes, I was often, referencing the TV tropes term of growing the beard, which is, a production gets better as the people creating it continue to get better. But really, that's something that I think applies to just about anything. There, of course, there are cases where like, oh, but man, this movie director was so much better back in the day and now they've gotten completely up their own ass. But like, those are pretty rare exceptions. And even that stuff is pretty objective as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it's okay. There are a bunch of common traps that I see people fall into all the time. There's 3. And once again, I'm going to sound mocking with these, but I am fully guilty of all this shit. Okay, the first one is quitting after a while on working on a particular project, and you just lose interest in it for various reasons. Case in point with me, the original TTA series. I got to a point where, now I'm all hypnotized by the popularity that I get from my shitty parody cartoons on Newgrounds, so I'm going to stop working on the original TTA series and give up the integrity of what I care about, which is telling a big story, and focus on the stuff that's going to get me more popular and maybe even eventually get me money. And those were my stupid reasons for doing that, but it came with the losing interest thing. The second thing was going back and reiterating the same concept over and over and over. Now, granted, one could say I'm guilty of doing this with Tome, of course, especially because, it is and it isn't too different from the original TTA series. But I'm more talking about, and this is especially true for webcomics, I've seen this countless times happen, where people will start on it and then they'll get maybe like a chapter or 2 in and they'll want to go back and redo the entire thing from the ground up. And then, this is after they've been working on it for like years to get like, the giant introduction chapter and then actual chapter 1. And then maybe they get like halfway through chapter 2 and they're just like, no, fuck it. I'm better now. And I've changed. I've learned. I have more experiences and my story sensibilities are different. So now I'm going to just start the whole thing all over. Or sometimes they scrap it entirely. And the third and final thing is the one that frustrates me the most. It's flat out never fully realizing the concept to begin with. I have so many talented colleagues that like I like yell at all the time where I see like them, showing pictures of like, here's like all my really cool looking original characters and like the story that I have that I'm totally going to do someday. And I just like sit there and watch for years as they continue to post all the amazing like concept art of it, and it never happens. And I'm just like, God damn it, make this. Like, you don't need a gajillion-dollar budget, from a publishing house or an animation studio or a network or whatever to make this. Just fucking make it. I want to see it. It looks so goddamn cool. I see this all the time. And then probably none of them are listening to this. If they are, I apologize if you're exactly who I'm talking about. But again, I get it. Like, it comes from that, that childlike wonder of like, I want to make my own whatever. I want to make my own animated series or comic or video game or whatever, especially when it comes to people who want to make video games. Because typically, and if people who are coming from an artist background and not a programming background, because in that case, it involves having to learn an entirely different skill set and not necessarily one that involves, visual art or storytelling. It's like actually making the medium work in the first place. But it's stuff like that all the time where it's just like, it just doesn't even get realized in the first place. It's just, oh man, I have this really, really good idea. So on the video game note too, there's that one, if I find it, I'll have an annotation to it somewhere, but there's that one video of like the two robot characters talking to each other, and they have like the auto-tune voices or whatever, where like, they're talking about what the video game industry is like, and the little robot is just like completely disenchanted as to like how this really works and everything. I love that video because it's 100% true, and I'm glad that I saw that when I was relatively young, so like I could have that kind of thing pounded into me, because it's sad, but it's true. It's exactly how this shit works. But yeah, and here's the thing, again, guilty of this. It took me 20 years before I was finally comfortable with doing anything with the balancing act IP. I was talking about this a little earlier. Is finally when I decided in my third year of college, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to do my thesis film for my final year of college coming up with that IP. And I did it. And it's there, and you can find it. It's on my Vimeo somewhere, etc. But, and here's the thing. There are a shit ton of changes that I want to make to that. Like, I've changed a bunch of different characters. I've completely rewritten a lot of how they are. Personality-wise, I've evolved the concept of what the story's supposed to be and what the whole like theme of it is and everything. There's a lot of major things about that IP that have evolved since I finished that thesis film, 6 years ago by this point, which is crazy to think it's been that long. But yeah, but the fact of the matter is, it's out there. That film is done. It's a piece of media for people to consume and find, and it's there. It's obscure. It's not like defining me as an artist, but it's still there. I made it. It's out there. And that doesn't mean that I can't make those changes and implement the changes that I want to make in the first place. If anything, it's also part of why my goal currently is I'm taking a break from producing stuff, which is why you haven't seen any new like big animation projects from me or whatever since Tome was finished, because I'm trying to currently train myself further. This goes back to the topic. I'm trying to get myself to be better at all of my skills: writing, animating, directing, voice acting, etc., everything, before I move on to whatever my next big project is, whether it's related to Tome or Balancing Act or something else entirely, or none of those or whatever. That's what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to hone my craft further. I'm trying to extrapolate upon what it is that I already know, learn more, and then when I get to that next point, then hopefully what I make next will be even bigger and better. That's also why I would say, Giannis, that if you're about to go to university or college, then you could feasibly wait if you want, like because you absolutely will be evolving immensely. And your work doesn't have to be publicized if you want to wait and hone your skills. There's nothing wrong with that, because college is a great opportunity to focus fully on making yourself as good as possible on the thing that you were most passionate about. There's so much more I could have done when I was there. I could have probably focused more on my studies, which is, I think, part of why I'm doing this now. Because, I wanted to keep producing. I wanted to keep creating stuff. I was so enamored by that prospect when I was doing all these early Flash cartoons when I was in high school still, that, when I got to college, I wanted to keep training, but I also wanted to keep creating because I just had to scratch that itch within me. But yeah, with all that information in mind, the moment of when you're going to be ready is entirely up for you to determine for yourself. Whatever it is that I tell you in this Kirblog and whatever else it is that you learn, you're gonna know when it is. You're gonna know, okay, I like where I'm at right now with my artwork. I'm confident in my abilities. And here's the thing, even with that, what you create might not be all that good in the end. Whatever your first big thing, whether it's this particular comic project that you're talking about or something else that you might think of entirely different, like when you're in college, or anything, or something else entirely, it might not be as great as you're picturing it to be. Because, and if anything, it's probably destined to be, because nothing is going to live up to our expectations. That's the curse of being an artist, is like, because you're always evolving. It's like, as soon as you create something, you look back and you're like, oh man, like I could do so much better now. And even though like again, like for instance with Tome, I'm so proud of like what I was able to accomplish and how hard all of my cast and crew worked to help me make it, make that show a reality. And I'm happy that I was able to do it. But at the same time, the truth is, I look back on it, I'm like, wow, I wish I could, I know I could just do much better. And that's why I'm aiming to do better on whatever it is that comes next. But you can't be afraid, is what my point is. Like, no matter what the outcome is going to be, like, no matter like how good or bad it may end up being, in correspondence to whatever it is that you're envisioning for what you want to make, you're never going to know, but you can't be afraid. You just have to do it. You just have to buckle down and be like, all right, this is the time. This is it. I'm going to just do it and put it out there. It could be right now. It could be tomorrow. It could be when you're finished with college. It could be halfway through college. It could be years after, when you can go into the mountains like, Thorpe Van Orman did and just paint for a while and just like become a badass. I mean, he did that and he made fucking Flapjack. So, sorry, but that's what I mean, is like you have to determine that for yourself. I don't mean that as like a cop-out answer to like, oh, I don't know, like just you figure it out. But like it really does come down to, you have to find what you're comfortable with. You have to find that threshold of skill that you think is going to closest befit where it is. But, reach a point. Be real with yourself. Be real with yourself. And here's the other thing too. Because I'd say this for myself, because I'm not that good of an artist. My drawings are not anything amazing. But I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I think that I can produce this. It's not going to be the most amazing looking thing in the world because I'm not that great of an artist, but I'm at a skill level that I can create Tome or whatever. Like Tome was the most recent big example of that, but that's what I mean. So you have to reach that point of comfortability and confidence and just go for it and just let it be what it is. And hopefully continue as you're doing it to get better. And don't be worried about, oh man, but like it's not going to be consistent, or I'm not going to learn as much, or whatever, etc. Because I had that concern too with Tome. I was worried that like by making it consistent with what my skill level was in 2011, that I wasn't going to progress. And I was worried that if I made it too inconsistent as the show went along, that it was going to look weird. But neither of those things ended up happening. And I just continued onward. I grew. I made something that I'm super proud of, that a lot of people really enjoyed, which I'm also still very appreciative of. And, and now it's on to the next thing. And hopefully, again, it will be better. And the same thing can apply to you, whether it's this project or the next or something totally different. That's what you got to do. So I hope this helped at all. I have no idea. But to anybody and everybody listening, not just the person who asked this, if you have any other further questions about this or further points that you want to maybe add, if this gets around to any other people who have put their work out there and gotten to stretch their creative muscles already, please go for it. I want to hear your opinions and thoughts and things and etc. And that's it. Yeah. So I'm curious to hear all your thoughts. And if you have ideas for future Kirblog topics, you can leave a comment about that too, or hit me up on Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, all the usual shit. You get it. Thanks again for listening, and we're almost done with the month already. It's crazy, but I'll have one more for March, and then I've got some cool stuff happening in April, so I look forward to that. And so hope this helped. Thanks for listening, blah, 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 and I love you all. Bye-bye.